Annually, archaeologists make thousands of new discoveries that allow us to learn more about human history. But sometimes ancient artifacts and burial sites are discovered by ordinary people and even animals. In this video, I invite you to explore some amazing finds that were discovered entirely by accident. Enjoy watching. In June 2017, during the construction of a new metro line, workers made a sensational discovery. By sheer chance, they unearthed the ruins of an ancient building and the skeleton of a dog that had died there around 1,800 years ago. This amazing find was located about 10 meters underground. Archaeologists, who promptly arrived at the scene, were very surprised to find that the structure resembled buildings in Pompeii. Scientists believe that both the structure and the dog skeleton were well preserved due to a fire that occurred at this location in the 3rd century AD. The building was a Roman villa with a solarium. Solariums were used for sunbathing and were only available to wealthy people. This solarium was no exception. The partially preserved interior was richly decorated. Archaeologists found fragments of colorful frescoes, expensive furniture, sculptures, and a mosaic floor. Unfortunately, scientists are unlikely to determine the name of the person who owned the villa and solarium. However, there is no doubt that its owner was an aristocrat. If you think treasure hunters are unlikely to find anything truly unique and valuable, you're mistaken. A striking example is the story of Gareth Millward from Derbyshire, England. In 2019, Gareth went treasure hunting with his friends in a field near Ashbourne. He said he had a feeling that luck awaited him there. By the way, Gareth had been using a metal detector for years, but until then, he hadn't found anything particularly valuable. He returned to this area several times, hoping to find something unique. When his friends found a few old coins, he decided he wouldn't leave the field until he found what he had come for. Eventually, luck smiled on him, and he discovered a hammered gold coin. On the front of the coin was a ship with the royal coat of arms on the sails, along with a Latin inscription. Gareth immediately knew it was a unique find. It later became clear that the coin dated back to the Tudor period, specifically the reign of Henry VII, making it at least 500 years old. Its value could be more than $5,200. Gareth reported his find to the landowner, who declined ownership rights, making Gareth Millward the rightful owner of the coin. In 2001, miners at a small mine near the town of Pindobaku in the Brazilian state of Bahia discovered a massive block of emerald. The stone stood 130 centimeters tall and weighed over 360 kilograms. Such large emeralds had never been found in Brazil, so the miners didn't know what to do with it. Brazilian emeralds are less valued than gemstones from Colombia and Zambia, making it difficult to find a buyer for such a giant gem. For these two reasons, when the miners were offered $5,000 for the emerald, they immediately agreed. The buyer quickly found someone to sell it to, but this time for $20,000. The new owners of the emerald were Elson Ribeiro and Rui Saraiva. They hid their purchase in a garage and started looking for new buyers, and one was found. In late 2001, American businessman Anthony Thomas was looking for new investment ideas. His consultant had told him many stories about Brazilian emeralds that could be bought for a very low price. Thomas decided to invest in gemstones and traveled with his assistants to Sao Paulo. There he met Elson and Rui, who offered to sell him the giant stone for just $60,000. The gemstone expert Thomas had brought along told him that this was a unique specimen, and its real value could be more than $900 million. Of course, after hearing this, Thomas made the deal. He transferred the necessary amount to the seller's account, and the stone was supposed to be shipped by mail, but it never reached its buyer. In fact, the stone had a long history of resales. It was sold and bought several times until it ended up in the hands of law enforcement. Detectives tried for a long time to determine who the rightful owner of the stone was. This investigation lasted for 10 years, and eventually the Brazilian authorities claimed ownership of the emerald. So, the giant emerald never belonged to any of the resellers. The Washington Monument is one of the three main landmarks of the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C. This obelisk was erected in 1885, designed by Robert Mills in honor of the first U.S. President, George Washington. The monument is a hollow column clad in marble, topped with a four-sided pyramid. Inside, there are 896 steps that lead to an observation deck, which can also be reached by elevator. The height of the Washington Monument is just over 169 meters. Before the Eiffel Tower was built, the obelisk was the tallest structure in the world. Today, it remains the tallest structure in Washington, D.C., and the largest obelisk in the world. For nearly 200 years, the monument's cornerstone was considered lost. However, in 2015, during the construction of a sewage reservoir, workers discovered a granite cube with a lid. Inside, they found 3 large glass bottles containing newspapers dated July 1st and 1815. According to the workers who found this time capsule, when they opened the stone's lid and held the newspapers, they felt as if they had traveled 200 years into the past, experiencing an overwhelming sense of awe. In 2023, during excavations in one of the oldest districts of modern Lima, Peru, archaeologists made an incredible discovery. They found the ruins of an ancient ceremonial structure built about 3,500 years ago. Inside, they discovered the remains of an adult and 4 child mummies. Since the mummies are about 1,000 years old, scientists concluded that the children belonged to the Iqma culture, which inhabited the central coast of Peru before the Inca Empire. Various ceramic items were found next to the mummies. Each child's body was positioned in a fetal pose, and they were covered with bundles of grapevines. This find reveals details about the burial rituals of the Iqma people. However, what amazed scientists the most was the exceptionally well-preserved hair on the skulls of the mummies. Of course, this is not the first time mummies with preserved hair have been found. A similar discovery was made earlier that same year in another region of Peru, where a 1,000-year-old skeleton was found with remarkably well-preserved hair. However, such discoveries are extremely rare, making each mummy of this kind highly valuable for scientists. In 1952, a schoolboy in Fife, Scotland, was punished for bad behavior by being made to collect potatoes. However, along with the potatoes, he also unearthed a sensational discovery, a fragment of an ancient Egyptian statue. The boy showed the artifact to his teacher, and the next day they visited the Royal Scottish Museum together. There, Egyptologist Cyril Aldred confirmed that the schoolboy had indeed found the head of an ancient Egyptian statuette dating back to the 12th dynasty, meaning the artifact was around 4,000 years old. Amazingly, over the next 30 years, 18 more fragments of ancient Egyptian statues were found. For a long time, scientists couldn't figure out why so many ancient statues were found in the Scottish county. Elizabeth Goering, the curator of the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, investigated this mystery. She discovered that the young heir of Melville House, on whose grounds the school was located and where the artifacts were found, had a fascination with ancient Egyptian history. In 1856, Lord Alexander Leslie Melville Balgony traveled to Egypt and brought back all these statues. After Balgony's death, his relatives stored the artifacts in an annex and forgot about them. Since the house was constantly being renovated, the statues broke apart and ended up in the ground. Today, all 18 artifacts are housed in the National Museum of Scotland. Sometimes, during construction of urban infrastructure, workers accidentally make grand discoveries. One such case occurred in 2019 in the suburbs of Mexico City. While building a new bus stop in Ecatepec de Morelos, workers were surprised to find that an ancient tunnel was hidden beneath the city's street. They reported their discovery to archaeologists, who began excavations the very next day. During the investigation, It was revealed that the tunnel was built by the Aztecs during the reign of Montezuma in the 15th century. Inside the tunnel, a 12-meter wall featured fragments of stone carvings that served as decoration. All of these carvings were related to the deity of water and fertility, Tlaloc. Tlaloc was usually depicted with large eyes and exposed fangs. The Aztecs believed that this deity gave life to all living things on Earth, but at the same time, Tlaloc could become angry and take the life of anyone who displeased him. Therefore, the Aztecs tried in every way to earn his favor and feared doing anything that might displease the god. Inside the tunnel, archaeologists also found objects made of glass, porcelain, majolica, and 2 statues, a headless seated figure and the fragment of legs from another statue. The infamous ancient Roman city of Pompeii was destroyed in AD 79 during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. In 2023, during further excavations, archaeologists accidentally made a shocking discovery that sheds light on a new side of life in Pompeii. Among the ruins, they found a bakery prison where slaves worked. This structure was used to grind grain for baking bread. The slaves who worked in this building were not allowed to go outside. They spent all their time inside the premises, with a single window located in the ceiling. Donkeys, which walked in circles to power the mill, also lived in the same building. Inside the bakery, archaeologists found the charred remains of 3 people who perished during the catastrophe. These individuals had no way to escape and were trapped. They were terrified by their hopeless situation and were hugging each other as they faced their death. It sounds horrific, but in ancient times, slaves were not considered people. The Roman writer Apuleius described the brutal treatment of the enslaved in his works. This archaeological find has become a vivid proof that such cruelty was indeed the norm among the wealthy of Pompeii. During excavations in the ancient city of Laodicea, located in modern-day Denizli province, Turkey, the head of a statue of Hygeia was discovered. This find is around 2,100 years old, though the sculptor remains unknown. Hygeia is the ancient Greek goddess of health. Statues of her were often placed in healing centers and in temples dedicated to her father, Asclepius, the god of medicine. Typically, Hygeia is depicted as a young, beautiful woman feeding a snake from her bowl. The symbol of Hygeia, or hygiene in medicine, remains a snake coiled around a bowl to this day. The city of Laodicea, where modern archaeologists regularly find ancient Greek artifacts, was founded in the 3rd century BC by King Antiochus II on the site of the ancient city of Diapolis. Laodicea was named after the king's wife, Laodice. The city quickly flourished and became wealthy due to its location on the Silk Road and the Lycus River. Every new discovery in Laodicea is a valuable artifact for archaeologists and historians, as it provides more information about the history, culture, customs, and craftsmanship of the inhabitants of this ancient city. In 2007, a Chinese farmer named Mr. Zhang from Chixian County began working on constructing a well in his garden. When he dug a hole about 20 meters deep and descended into it, he realized that he had discovered a massive karst cave. Zhang was fascinated by his find. He decided to explore the cave and document his little journey into the unknown on camera. Later, he shared the video online. The footage quickly went viral, and users began expressing their desire to visit the cave. Tourists gradually started visiting the farmer's property. Visitors to this amazing natural site report that the cave stretches 300 meters. Inside, there are numerous stalactites and stalagmites, forming various intricate shapes. According to tourists, inside this cave, they feel as if they've entered a fairy tale castle. Interestingly, a karst cave had already been discovered several kilometers from Mr. Zhang's house, with a total length of 1,200 meters. Scientists were astonished by these 2 discoveries, as most karst caves are located on hillsides, and underground ones are extremely rare. Moreover, it's nearly unheard of for 2 underground karst caves to be located so close to each other. Karst caves are formed by the dissolution of rocks such as limestone, dolomite, and gypsum. Typically, they are created in areas with water drainage and are known worldwide for their impressive, colorful rock formations. In 2019, Betty and Robert Fuchs bought a house in Dorset, England. The building had been constructed in the 17th century and had undergone many renovations and repairs, but it still wasn't comfortable for living. For this reason, the couple decided to do a major renovation. Robert took on the repairs himself, starting with the kitchen. While replacing the flooring, he noticed fragments of ceramics but didn't think much of it. After removing another layer of flooring, he found a large number of gold and silver coins. Imagine Robert's shock when he realized he had found a real treasure. The man was stunned and shared the news with his wife. Betty advised him to carefully place all the coins in a bucket and call a local finds liaison officer. When the expert arrived, he informed the family that their find dated back to the 17th century. Most likely, the treasure was hidden in the house during the English Civil War, between 1641 and 1660. The expert also contacted archaeologists, who soon arrived at the Fuchs home and took the find with them. In total, 1,029 gold and silver coins had been hidden under the floor. It is believed that they belonged to a wealthy man who went off to war and died, leaving his treasure behind in the unremarkable house. By law, such finds become state property, but they must be purchased by a museum at the appraised value, with a percentage going to the finders. The treasure was valued at £35,000, but the museum did not want to buy it, so the coins remained in the Fuchs family's possession. The couple auctioned their find in Dorchester, where it sold for £60,740. In April 2023, archaeologists in eastern India discovered an ancient Buddhist statue of an elephant. After conducting research, it was determined that the statue is 2,300 years old. The statue was found on the banks of the Daya River near a red laterite pillar. In addition to the elephant, the ruins of an ancient Buddhist temple were also discovered at the site. The Daya River is highly valued by archaeologists, as it is rich in various Buddhist artifacts dating from the 3rd century BC to the 2nd century AD, a period when Buddhism was the dominant religion in the region. Interestingly, archaeologists had previously found a very similar elephant statue in Dhauli, an ancient Buddhist center located 19 kilometers from where this new discovery was made. The earlier statue dates from 272 to 231 BC. Since ancient times, elephants have been revered as sacred animals in India. They symbolize strength, power, and wisdom. This is because in Buddhist legends, elephants were considered close to the gods. Additionally, one of the main Hindu deities, Ganesha, the son of Shiva and Parvati, is depicted with an elephant's head. A resident of the Astrakhan region, located in southern Russia, accidentally discovered an ancient burial mound with human remains on his property. According to Ruslan Mudeev, he was doing some earthworks when his shovel hit something hard. The man carefully removed the earth around the object and found a bronze pot. Curious about his discovery, Ruslan continued digging and soon found several more ancient artifacts. He then decided to report his find to the Astrakhan Historical Museum. Upon learning about the treasure trove, the museum sent a team of archaeologists to the site. Upon first examining the artifacts, scientists suggested that they belonged to a very wealthy person who lived in this area before the Common Era. During the excavation, archaeologists discovered that Ruslan's property housed a genuine tomb with the remains of a Sarmatian tribal chief. The chief's head was slightly elevated, indicating his high rank during his lifetime, and his body was covered with a fabric containing gold inserts, further testifying to his status. Surprisingly, despite the remains being over 2,000 years old, the skeleton's teeth were well preserved. In the chief's tomb, archaeologists found a collection of knives and various items made of bronze and gold. During subsequent excavations near the tomb, Archaeologists discovered other burial sites with well-preserved remains. In the fall of 2023, paleontologists in eastern China discovered two well-preserved fossils of ancient lampreys. These fossils are approximately 160 million years old. The animals belonged to two species, one of which scientists named Killer and the other Big Teeth. Even though lamprey-like creatures appeared on our planet more than 350 million years ago, fossils of such ancient specimens have been very rarely found. This discovery became a true sensation, allowing scientists to learn more about the structure and lifestyle of the ancestors of modern lampreys. The ancient specimens were quite large. The Killer species had a body length of about 65 centimeters. Previously found lamprey fossils from the Jurassic period and earlier were much smaller than these two specimens, although modern lampreys can reach up to 120 centimeters in length. Judging by the oral structure of the ancient lampreys, scientists concluded that they attached themselves to the bodies of fish and other marine animals and fed on their blood. Modern lampreys lead almost the same lifestyle as their ancestors, living in seas, oceans, rivers, and lakes, and feeding on the blood and muscle tissue of other aquatic creatures. In eastern England several decades ago, archaeologists discovered Iron Age settlements. Excavations have continued on this site periodically ever since. One of the latest finds was a fragment of a rectangular comb with roughly cut teeth. Analysis of this artifact revealed that it was made from a human skull, and it is over 2,000 years old. In modern times, such an accessory would be considered gruesome, but ancient people often made objects from bones, including human bones. Scientists believe that the comb was not used for its intended purpose and may have served as a talisman. They were led to this conclusion by the presence of a hole in the center of the comb. Of course, it is impossible to determine whose skull this bone came from. Experts have two theories about this. According to one, the talisman might have belonged to an ancient warrior who, after defeating his enemy, carved the comb from the skull of the slain and wore it around his neck as a trophy. It is also possible that the talisman was made from the skull of a tribal chief as a way of remembering him. Previously, archaeologists had found two other similar combs also made from parietal bone. Interestingly, they were found just 25 kilometers from the site where this third comb was discovered. This suggests that the Iron Age inhabitants of Britain had some tradition related to making such objects from human skulls. However, scientists still do not know the specifics or purpose of this practice or ritual. Sometimes people get very lucky and manage to find a real treasure. While this happens quite rarely, such fortunate individuals do exist. One of them is a resident of Mercer County in Kentucky, USA. This man had the good fortune of finding a treasure consisting of nearly 700 gold and silver coins minted between 1840 and 1863 in one of his cornfields. The farmer's name and the exact location of the find have not been disclosed. Representatives from the Numismatic Guarantee Company confirmed the authenticity of the coins. The majority of the treasure consists of dollar coins, while the rest are $10 and $20 coins. The most valuable and rarest among them are the $20 gold coins, with each estimated to be worth over $100,000 at auction. Experts believe the treasure was buried during the advance of Confederate forces in 1863. Many local residents buried their wealth during the Civil War to avoid being robbed in the midst of military actions. In 2020, Chris Hopkins, a resident of Bromsgrove in Worcestershire, England, decided to clean up his garden with his daughters. While clearing weeds, he dug a hole and discovered a surprising find: an almost intact Italian Bianchi Falco 49cc moped with an engine from the Austrian company Puch, produced in the 1960s. According to Chris, he had lived on this property for 8 years and had no idea that the place held any secrets. The previous owners of the house used the area as a dumping ground for garden waste, which is why Chris chose it to create a flower bed. Chris says that when he and his daughters started digging, his shovel hit something. That's when he saw it was a wheel. At first, Chris thought it was just junk or a bicycle, but with each movement of the shovel, it became clear that it was a complete motorcycle. Chris doesn't know the history of his find, who owned the motorcycle, or how it ended up underground. He likes to imagine various scenarios explaining how the moped got there. Perhaps it was hidden by a thief who stole it, or by someone who crashed into a fence and wanted to cover up the incident. Or maybe someone simply left the motorcycle underground as a sort of treasure, intending to surprise whoever found it, just like Chris Hopkins was surprised. You might be surprised, but sometimes the discoverers of ancient artifacts and burial sites are not archaeologists or ordinary people, but wild animals. Such a story happened in Brandenburg, Germany. In 2013, a badger decided to build itself a new burrow. It chose a spot that, as it turned out later, was an ancient burial site. There is now a farm on this site, where two sculptors who were also archaeology enthusiasts were resting. According to Lars Wilhelm and Hendrik Ring, they noticed something sticking out of the ground that resembled a bone. When they came closer, they realized they were right. There was indeed a bone in the badger's burrow, and it was human. The sculptors were aware that a burial field had been discovered nearby in the 1960s, so they decided to inform archaeologists of their find, but first decided to examine the burrow themselves. They lowered a camera into the badger's burrow, and the images revealed human remains and various ancient artifacts. When the archaeologists arrived at the farm, they discovered that there were 8 ancient graves in the badger's burrow, dating back to the 12th century. 2 of the graves belonged to wealthy individuals, as swords, jewelry, and precious items were found inside them. In the summer of 2024, during road construction work in the Netherlands, an excavator operator made a truly unique discovery: the remains of an ancient, very large creature. According to the worker, upon seeing the skeleton, he immediately thought of dragons. He reported his find to archaeologists. During the excavation, researchers were able to retrieve fairly well-preserved remains of a previously unknown creature from the sandstone. The skeleton was incomplete, so it is not yet possible to definitively identify what it belonged to. Judging by the size of the bones found, scientists estimated that the creature could have been up to 10 meters long. The shape of its body did somewhat resemble a dragon, though it likely did not have wings. At this point, scientists are not ready to answer the question of whose remains were uncovered thanks to the excavator. It is most likely that this was some kind of dinosaur, not a mythical dragon. Germany is often considered the birthplace of beer, but that's not entirely accurate. The first recipe for a low-alcohol drink made from sprouted barley belonged to the Sumerians. This ancient civilization existed from the mid-4th millennium BC to the 1st millennium BC in southern Mesopotamia. The Sumerians likely brewed small amounts of beer for medicinal purposes, as archaeologists have not found large-scale breweries from this civilization. However, in 2021, researchers discovered Pharaoh Narmer's brewery in the ancient Egyptian city of Abydos. Just imagine the astonishment of archaeologists when the brewery was fully uncovered. It wasn't a small workshop, but an actual factory for producing beer. This structure is over 5,000 years old. The brewery's capacity is impressive, as it could produce up to 22,000 liters of beer at once. The facility consisted of 8 large sections, each measuring 2 meters in length, 2.5 meters in width, and 0.5 meters in depth. Each section contained about 40 clay vessels, arranged in 2 rows for heating a mixture of grain and water. This brewery was built specifically for the rituals of Pharaoh Narmer, which were conducted in the burial structures of ancient Egyptian rulers. During excavations in such structures, archaeologists have found numerous pieces of evidence that beer was actively used in sacrificial rituals and other ceremonies. In 2023, archaeologists resumed excavations on the grounds of Caesar's Forum in Rome. The Imperial Forum was built in 46 BC by order of Gaius Julius Caesar. This architectural complex underwent several reconstructions, once in the 2nd century AD, again in the 3rd century AD, and finally in the 16th century when a baker's hospital was built on its grounds. It was on the site of this hospital that archaeologists began their excavations. The researchers' findings do not relate to ancient Rome, but they are still valuable for understanding 16th century medicine. On the grounds of the former baker's hospital, archaeologists discovered many medical instruments, including urine flasks. In the Middle Ages, uroscopy was one of the primary diagnostic methods for doctors. Glass flasks were filled with patients' urine, which was then sent to the physician. The doctor would examine the sample for sediment, check its color and smell, and in some cases, even taste it. While this may seem unpleasant and even repulsive today, this method allowed doctors to easily diagnose conditions like diabetes, which often resulted in changes to the smell and taste of urine due to high glucose levels. And that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your engagement is the best reward for me. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.